Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe how you look at software patents and computer code. We're stepping entirely away from the idea of cold mechanical instructions, and instead, we're going to look at them as highly expressive, formalized literature. Let's kick things off with a totally mind-bending premise that is actually codified right into the U.S. Patent Office manual. A patent isn't just some legal shield. It is literally defined as the literature of the art. It's a formalized text that has to be read, interpreted, and negotiated exactly like a complex novel or a poem. Because this explainer weaves together computer hardware, literary theory, and data science, here is our roadmap. 1. The literature of the art. 2. The myth of the author. 3. The semiotic bridge. 4. The crisis of vagueness. And 5. Decoding with corpus linguistics. Section 1. The literature of the art. Patents as autonomous texts. Okay, so this highlights a really profound philosophical divide in our legal system. Copyright is what we call author-individuated. It celebrates the unique emotional expression of the creator. Think about it. If Shakespeare had died as a child, society literally never would have had Hamlet. But patent law, it's structure-individuated. It views inventions as pre-existing structures of the natural world. If Isaac Newton had died as a child, calculus still would have been discovered. And because of that, patent law offers absolutely zero defense for independent creation. Now, check out how patent law handles intent. Just like structuralist literary theories that completely reject an author's personal biography to focus just on the text itself, patent law rejects the subjective intent of the inventor. Instead, it relies on a fictional reader, this hypothetical entity called the posita, or the person having ordinary skill in the art, to objectively interpret what the text means. Section 2. The myth of the author. Who really writes the rules? The whole patent system operates on this wild epistemic divide. Society loves to celebrate the named inventor as the romantic author, the sole genius struck by divine inspiration. But the grueling, incredibly complex work of actually defining the property boundaries, that gets delegated to the corporate patent agent. This agent is basically an elite ghostwriter, translating a raw physical invention into a highly abstract, legally binding manuscript. To grasp just how fragile this whole idea of authorship really is, let's look at how the romantic author has been completely dismantled over time. You start in 1710 with the Statute of Anne officially inaugurating copyright. Fast forward to 1967, and theorist Roland Barthes drops The Death of the Author, arguing writers are really just scripters remixing existing culture. Boom, 1999 hits, and digital piracy totally disrupts traditional royalties. And today, generative AI acts as the ultimate scripter, autonomously recombining cultural data without a single ounce of human emotion. Section 3. The semiotic bridge, connecting mind to metal. We really have to juxtapose the massive gap between our organic human minds, let's call that OS alpha, and the unforgiving, blind reality of a computer chip. The human mind is associative, it's fuzzy, it's entirely driven by context. Computer hardware, though, it's incredibly strict and deterministic, driven purely by physical switch states and clocked voltage levels. There is absolutely zero semantic meaning down there in the silicon. So how on earth do we cross that gap? Well, it's text. Specifically, strict, formalized text and code acts as our semiotic bridge. It is literally the only deterministic medium we have that's capable of mapping our messy associative human thoughts directly onto physical silicon. We are, quite literally, tricking rocks into thinking using lightning and language. Section 4. The crisis of vagueness, the danger of the thicket. Okay, I want you to just let this staggering number sink in for a second. 250,000. There are an estimated 250,000 active overlapping patents covering just one single modern smartphone. That touches everything from the internal antenna right down to the glass on the screen. Because of that insane density, courts are facing an absolutely Sisyphean task when interpreting patents. All these overlapping property rights create a wildly hostile patent thicket. It stifles independent research, acts as a massive corporate blockage, and forces courts to essentially start from scratch every single time they have to decode a new patent claim. And remember those elite ghostwriting patent agents we talked about? Well, they frequently borrow abstract, vague terminology from older patents. They use these magic words to ensure their claims are as broad as humanly possible. This strategic vagueness makes figuring out what a claim actually covers a complete nightmare. If vase text is the only thing defining the invention, the whole system just breaks down. Section 5. Decoding with corpus linguistics, an empirical solution. If patents are literature, well, we've got to interpret them using literary tools. Enter corpus linguistics. This is an absolute game changer. It is the empirical, quantitative study of language using massive databases of naturally occurring text. Instead of relying on some subjective gut feeling from a judge or a lawyer, it allows courts to objectively decode the ordinary meaning of vague patent claims using actual, real-world data. Here's how this actually works in the real world as an actionable science. First, you fire up web scrapers to gather thousands and thousands of relevant U.S. patent texts. Second, you run part-of-speech taggers to break down and grammatically analyze all of it. And third, you use concordancers. This software lets you examine the context and the collocates, which are the words that frequently pop up right next to your target term. You instantly get to see exactly how professionals are actually using the language in the field. When you compare these two methods, honestly, the winner is obvious. Traditional dictionaries only give you qualitative, isolated definitions that strip away all the nuance and context. But a specialized patent corpus, it gives you quantitative, empirical usage. It hands us the exact real-world context we desperately need to resolve these massive billion-dollar legal ambiguities. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. Throughout this whole explainer, we have seen that bridging human intent and deterministic computer execution requires intense manual effort, the literal sweat of the brow. But if that human struggle is genuinely the only path to achieving bit-perfect fidelity, can we ever truly remove the human from the loop? If we stop writing that bridge ourselves and surrender text interpretation entirely to automation, who ultimately controls the physics of our reality? Thanks so much for joining me.